Trying to plan your Thanksgiving Day dinner can be incredibly frustrating. Not only do you have to worry about what types of dishes you want to make, but you also have to worry about oven space for that day. Because if your day is anything like mine, it becomes a puzzle trying to figure out what dishes you're going to make, what temperature they cook at, and for how long, and which can you cook together at the same time so that everything is ready by the time your guests arrive. It's challenging. So what I'm gonna do is this year, I'm gonna make it a little bit easier on myself, and I'm actually gonna utilize my crock pot. So any recipes that I can prepare in the crock pot, I'm going to free up that oven space for the other dishes that need to be cooked in the oven. So I'm gonna show you how you can make turkey, stuffing, mashed potatoes, and a veggie side dish in the crock pot. That way you can prepare it in the morning, it can cook during the day, and then you're not stressed trying to get everything on the table when your guests arrive. So come along with me and I'm gonna show you what I'm gonna make. I'm going to begin by making my cheesy corn and broccoli. I just sprayed my crock pot with some nonstick spray, and now I'm gonna add in 16 ounces of frozen corn. I only had 12-ounce bags, so I added about a bag and a third. And then to that, I am going to add 16 to 20 ounces of frozen broccoli florets. So I'm gonna add a bag and a half to this. Then I've got 1/4 cup of milk. I'm gonna combine that with 1 can of condensed cream of chicken soup. Get that all stirred together. And then to that, I'm gonna add a 1/2 cup of shredded cheddar cheese. Once that is all mixed, I'm going to cover my corn and broccoli with it and stir it together. Now that that's well combined, I am adding 4 ounces of Velveeta cheese. And come on, who doesn't love Velveeta? Now that that's all added in, I covered my crock pot, began cooking, and then I realized, I should make a topping for this. So I took about a 1/2 stick of melted butter, and to that I crushed up about a 1/2 sleeve of Ritz crackers, stirred that to combine, and then I added that as a topping into the crock pot, and I let this cook on low for probably 3 hours, 3.5 hours. Once the cheese was melted and the crackers were nice and browned, as you can see, I transferred this to a baking dish just for presentation purposes. Can I just tell you right now, my house smells amazing. I just want to dive in and eat everything, but I'm not going to eat everything just yet. But as I showed you, I took the corn and broccoli out of the crock pot. What I would probably do at this point when I was ready to serve it is I would take some more Ritz crackers, crumble those up, and put another layer on the top. If the oven space was not an issue for you, you could even make this the day before, and then when you're ready, go ahead, pop it in the oven, warm it up, put some additional crackers on the top, maybe even broil it for a minute or two and get those crackers nice and crispy. But I put some on a plate for me already. I did put some extra crackers on the top, but I can't wait to try this. One thing I might have done differently, next time I make this, I probably will do this a little bit differently. I'd cut the broccoli up into smaller florets. It's not gonna affect the taste, but maybe it would look a little nicer if the broccoli was smaller. Maybe, maybe not, I don't know. But anyway. That's really good. So good. It's really rich and cheesy. And I honestly think that the crackers on the top really add just an additional layer to this dish. They add a little bit of crunch, a little bit more of a buttery flavor. I would highly recommend, if you're gonna make this, definitely add the crackers. I'm really glad I did. For the next recipe, I'm going to make mashed potatoes in the crock pot, and the great thing about this recipe is you do not have to boil the potatoes before you put them in the crock pot. So I'm just starting with a 5-pound bag of russet potatoes. I'm going to go ahead and peel these and chop them into about 1-inch pieces. For my potatoes, I'm going to spray my crock pot with nonstick spray and then add the potatoes. The longest part of this recipe is peeling and dicing the potatoes. I'd say it took me probably about 15 minutes, but I was very cautious not to cut my fingers. To my potatoes, I'm going to add some garlic powder and some onion powder, and then I need to add 32 ounces of chicken broth as well. And then on top of the potatoes, I am going to place 1 stick of butter, which I cut into pats. And once that's done, I will cover this and I will cook it on high for 3 to 4 hours until my potatoes are nice and tender. Once my potatoes were done, I removed them from the crock pot to strain them to remove all the liquid, and then I put them back in the crock pot. Now I wanted to use my potato masher to mash them up, but I couldn't find it. So instead I just went ahead and used my mixer. So I mixed these until they were a smooth consistency. Once they were smooth, I added a little bit of salt and pepper, and then I added 1 additional softened stick of butter and 8 ounces of cream cheese. Then about 1/4 cup of heavy whipping cream. You can always add more, but I wanted to go ahead and mix this up and see if they were smooth enough or if I thought they needed additional liquid. Turned out they were just perfect. I didn't need to add any additional cream. I have never made mashed potatoes in the crock pot before, but that could not have been easier. The hardest part was actually just peeling the potatoes. And look at this, I put them in a serving bowl. Look at how many potatoes that made. It's a ton, and they are so creamy. Now what I would do when I go to serve this, I would just put a little bit more butter on the top of it, and I would also cut up some chives, which is what I have done on my plate so that I can try them. But they look amazing. They're so creamy and buttery because I put a little bit of extra butter on the top. They're delicious, and you could just leave these in the crock pot on warm if you wanted, if you weren't ready to serve them yet. I highly recommend making your potatoes this way. I will definitely be doing this again. Super easy. For my stuffing, I'm going to start with using bread that's been sitting out for about 24 hours or so. You can see I'm going to use a mixture of white and also wheat. I began by cleaning up some celery and also preparing an onion. So for this, it's pretty simple. I'm just going to slice my celery, cut it up into small pieces, and then I'm going to dice my onion pretty finely as well. I have a skillet on the stovetop, and to it I added a little bit of olive oil and I let that heat up. Once it was ready, I added in my onions and my celery, and I stirred this until they were covered in the oil. Then to the skillet I added 2 teaspoons of poultry season and some salt and pepper. I added a little bit less than half a teaspoon of salt and right around half a teaspoon of pepper. I stirred that until my celery and onions were coated with the poultry season, salt, and pepper. Then I added in some butter, stirred this in until it melted, and then you want to let the veggies cool completely before you add them to your bread. So once this was done, I put it to the side and let it cool. I then moved on to my bread. Now this had been sitting out, so it was pretty crusty. I tried to cut it, but obviously that wasn't working so well, so I gave up on that and decided it would be easier if I just shredded it with my hands. So that is exactly what I did. Now you want about 12 cups total of bread. I used about 6 cups of white bread, 6 cups of wheat bread, but you can use whatever combination you like. I moved my bread into a large bowl and moved on to my herbs. You can use whatever herbs you have on hand. I used some parsley, some thyme, and some sage. So I went ahead and finely chopped my parsley and my sage, and then I pulled the thyme leaves off of the stems, and I finally chopped that as well. And then I added those to my bread in the bowl. I added my herbs into the bread mixture, and then you're going to go ahead and add some chicken broth. Now, the recipe calls for at least, I believe, 32 ounces of chicken broth. However, you want to be careful not to add too much because it will make your stuffing kind of gummy and too moist. So I think I added a little bit too much, and I ended up adding more bread to this to try to sop up some of that moisture. So I would start by adding a cup or two of your liquid just till you get the right consistency. Then I whisked together 2 eggs and added that to my mixture, and I stirred that all together until it was combined. From there, I moved over to the crock pot and I sprayed it pretty generously with nonstick spray. You definitely don't want this to stick. And then I added in my stuffing mixture. I covered it up and then I let it cook for probably 3.5 hours on low. I pulled the stuffing out of the crock pot. It was a little wet, and I actually added some extra bread. You can see in here some of the newer bread that I added. It was just a little too wet for my liking, so I did pull it out and put it on a sheet pan and just let it dry out a little bit, and now it's just fine. My next recipe is a cranberry turkey roast in the crock pot. I love this so much. I make this every year, and I've actually never made a real turkey. I made a different version of this using one of these breast roasts in a previous video. I will link that above so you can see it. But I am going to start by putting my gloves on because I do not like to touch raw meat. So there I am being a dork with my gloves. I'm just going to go ahead and cut the roast packaging open to pull that out. And I will show you here that there is a gravy packet inside of the packaging. I am not going to use that for this recipe, but you could definitely make some extra gravy. You just combine that with some chicken stock or the juices from the breast after it's cooked, and you put that in a pan. So to that turkey breast roast, I am going to start by adding 1 packet of French onion soup mix. I'm just going to spread that over the top of the roast. And then 1 can of cranberry, which I had the can upside down. I don't understand why they have you open it from the bottom. If anyone knows that, let me know, but that seems to be the thing with cranberry sauce. So I took it out of the can and I just kind of smashed it up a little bit so that it was a little bit easier to spread on top of my turkey breast. But as you can see, I just added it to my crock pot. It doesn't all have to be on top of the turkey. It's just fine. I do like to have some on top of it though, because it adds really great flavor when it seeps into it. I know this sounds like a really odd combination, but you have to trust me. It's delicious. So this is going to cook on low for about 6 hours, and it was about the halfway point. It's about 3.5 hours. So I just wanted to move around some of the sauce and put some more back on the top just to kind of pat it down into the turkey so that it really flavored the turkey. At this point, my turkey breast had been cooking for about 6 hours. I did check the temperature. It was cooked all the way through. So I'm gonna go ahead and remove it from the crock pot, and you can see all the juicy goodness at the bottom of the crock pot, all the cranberry bits and the French onion soup. So I'm just gonna whisk that together to get a slightly smoother consistency. And at this point, if you wanted to, you could add a little bit of cornstarch, cook this a little bit longer, and your gravy would be perfect. I prefer my gravy without a lot of lumps in it, so I just put a strainer inside of a bowl, and then I'm spooning the gravy into that strainer, and I will push it down so that all the liquid seeps through. And then I put this on my stove for a few minutes just to get it to boil, and that thickened my sauce so that I had a really nice thick gravy. Yes, I forgot to add that I did put a little bit of cornstarch into my gravy to thicken it a little bit more. If you just mix it with a little bit of water, you make it a slurry, you just pour it right in, and then when I put it on the stovetop, then it really did create a nice thick gravy. Now the turkey has a netting on it to hold it together while you cook it, and obviously you do not want to forget to remove this. So you can see here I am just removing the netting, and you might want to let your turkey breast cool down a few minutes before you do this because it is really hard to do when the turkey breast is super hot. From there, I just sliced my turkey breast up into pretty thin pieces, and then I took it over to the stove to add some gravy to it. So I actually cooked the stuffing and the turkey at the same time in different crock pots. They're both done, so it is now time to eat, and I swear his nose knows when food is ready because look who just showed up. So I thought I was going to be taking the bite to show you, but apparently I'm not. So
I'll follow that.
yeah, okay. You want to try the turkey?
Sure.
And I don't know if you can hear Frankie.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now try the stuffing. I made that in the crock pot.
Is it in the crock pot?
Yeah.
Good.
Thanks. So there you have it. 4 meal ideas that you can make in the crock pot for Thanksgiving and not have to use your oven. I hope you found something that you like. Enjoy. One more thing. So we have the dogs here waiting for food. This is Frankie staring at the counter waiting for food. And then Josie is over here. Same thing. So this is what they do. So while Derek eats, the dogs wait very patiently. Bye.